Good evening, everyone. Today is April 23rd, 2025. You are listening to The Jenny Show, and we have two interesting stories for you today. First, a black father, a realtor, a community man, Ronald Dumas Jr., vanished in December. At first, it looked like a mystery, but now we know it wasn't just a disappearance, it was an abduction. And what's worse, it took months for anyone to treat it that way. Today on The Jenny Show, we're breaking down what happened to Ronald and why this case reveals a bigger systemic problem when black men go missing in America. Later, we're going to go to Eastern North Carolina, to a place where culture and history runs deep and where a long overdue moment of recognition is finally in reach. We're talking about the Haliwa-Saponi Indian tribe, a community with a powerful legacy of survival, resilience, and self determination. This past weekend, they celebrated their 60th annual Blooming of the Dogwood Powwow. And this year's gathering wasn't just about honoring tradition, it was about fighting for the future. At the center of it all, a major announcement from Congressman Don Davis, who introduced a bill that could change everything for the people. So, what does federal recognition really means, and why has it taken it so long for this bill to be proposed in Congress? We're going to dig into all of that, plus their incredible history, how their culture continues to thrive, and what this bill can unlock for future generations. This is The Jenny Show, where the stories you didn't hear about become our biggest headlines. From underreported voices to overlooked policies, we get into all the systems that shape our lives. No spin, just truth, context, and a little bit of fire. Now, let's get into it. December 15th, 2024 is the last time we have any video evidence of anyone seeing Ronald Dumas Jr. He was in Mid City Liquor Store in Huntsville, Alabama. Surveillance video shows him smiling, laughing, and leaving out with two women. He doesn't look worried, he doesn't look in trouble. In fact, nothing is odd about the surveillance photo, yet things turn for the worse. By the next day, his black Hyundai Palisades is found abandoned over 100 miles from Huntsville along I 40 in near Waverly, Tennessee. A phone ping later places him that night in Jackson, Tennessee. Someone knew something was wrong, but no one acted fast enough. Ronald wasn't reported missing until 2 days later on December 17th. By then, critical evidence, his movements, phone data, surveillance footage, possible witnesses were already going cold. And the longer law enforcement waits, the harder it is to bring somebody home. Let's be clear, the first 48 hours in a missing persons case is the most crucial. That's when leads are fresh, that's when digital trails are live, that's when people can recall what they saw and heard. Miss that window and you're already playing catch up. And with men, particularly black men, the urgency just isn't there. Missing black people are disproportionately underrepresented in national media. And when it's a man, people often assume that he's avoiding responsibility or just laying low. But this is became a case that slipped through the cracks. This man was vanishing while the system looked the other way. In fact, it wasn't until February that the case shifted from missing to abducted. And that's when names started surfacing and facts came into play. Ronald was lured, and the people who were involved were very organized. So we know that Quintarius White, a 32-year-old from Memphis, has been charged with first degree kidnapping. He has a violent criminal history and he is known for using social media to bait victims. Teray McLaurin, a 33-year-old in Memphis, was also charged with first degree kidnapping, and he's been linked to multiple interstate fraud and trafficking cases. We know that there's a 2016 case where he was on a $50,000 bail for bond. A 27-year-old Sabrina Chambers from Huntsville was one of the last women seen with Ronald. She was charged with first degree kidnapping as well, and she was trying to evade authorities as she herself was reported missing by her grandmother before her arrest. Kiera Clark, a 27-year-old from Memphis, was charged with conspiracy to commit kidnapping, allegedly coordinated between the Huntsville and Memphis suspects. And last but not least, the fifth person was 33-year-old Carissa Cash from Memphis, who was charged with possession of Ronald's stolen vehicles. But then there's more. The five has now been turned eight a couple weeks ago, as there's Diedrich Woodard, Jasmine Braden, and Cassie Feathers, who was charged a few weeks ago for harboring fugitives connected to this case. This was not random. Ronald did not just run away. This was planned, targeted, and carried out across state lines. Yet it took 2 full months for authorities to authorize this as a kidnapping. Why? Now, let's talk about the system, because that's where the why is. According to the Black and Missing Foundation, over 30% of missing persons in the U.S. are Black, although Black Americans make up only 13% of the U.S. population. Their cases are often dismissed even when foul play is obvious. When white women go missing, there's a name for the media's obsession. It's called missing white woman syndrome. It's a term to describe the overwhelming attention given when a young, white, often blonde, often innocent appearing white woman vanishes. And yes, we should care when anyone goes missing. The double standard is the issue. When Black men disappear, the narrative shifts. It goes to they're probably running away from something. They don't want to be found. They're abandoning their responsibility. That assumption delayed Ronald's case. It delays countless others. And these are not statistics, these are people, fathers, brothers, sons, and they're disappearing barely without a headline. Ronald's case wasn't a random encounter, it was coordinated, it was intentional, and through it all, his family is refusing to stay silent.
Just a name on a report. He is their hope. He is their laughter. He is their comfort. To us, his family.
For those listening by audio, that was Talia Berryhill, the mother of Dumas' daughter, speaking on his behalf at a press conference a few nights ago. His sister said it best. She said, "This isn't a cold case, this is an open wound." Now, the FBI and the U.S. Marshals are involved. The NAACP is monitoring the case. There is a $10,000 reward that's still out there for any information, and yet Ronald still has not been found. We cannot normalize this. We cannot shrug and keep saying, grown men disappear. We must challenge every assumption that keeps these cases from getting the urgency it deserves. Ronald wants to be home with his family. His family wants him home with them. So we need to change how we respond. And I'm putting myself on the line too as a media professional, but not only in the media, but in public and with law enforcement, because until Black people's lives, especially Black men's lives, are treated with the same urgency as a young, often blonde, innocent looking white woman, the system will keep working exactly the way it has been. With that, if you have any information or know any leads about the Ronald Dumas case, please contact investigator Stephen Gibbs at 256 427 5448. The number is up on the screen. Or submit an anonymous tip to Crime Stoppers at 256 532 7463. And for our second story, let's talk about this legislation that is beneficial to the Haliwa-Saponi people down in North Carolina. So, over this past weekend on Saturday, April 19th, Congressman Don Davis stood along tribal leaders, citizens, and family in Hollister, North Carolina for the 60th annual Haliwa-Saponi Blooming of the Dogwood Powwow. This powwow is more than a celebration, it's a living tradition and a powerful reminder of the enduring strength, culture, and spirit of the Haliwa-Saponi people. At the powwow, surrounded by dancers and regalia, and the steady beat of traditional drums, Congressman Davis ceremonially signed a copy of the bill and presented to Chief Dr. Ogletree Richardson, reaffirming his commitment to honor their legacy. He told the crowd, and I quote, the Haliwa-Saponi Indian tribe deserves federal recognition, and we must respect their deeply rooted heritage and vibrant traditions. We must validate their historical significance and pay tribute to their ongoing contributions. Their rich legacy, intertwined with incredible ancestral stories, truly merits the honor of federal recognition. Powerful words, and hopefully a step towards lasting change. It also sets the stage for what may become a turning point in the tribe's long journey towards recognition. Now, before we move on, I want to take a moment to honor the legacy of the Haliwa Suponi people because understanding their past is key to understanding why this fight for federal recognition is so important. They can trace their ancestries back to the Supani Nation, a Siouan speaking people who originally lived in the Piedmont region, what is now Virginia and North Carolina. Centuries ago, they were pushed away from their land due to colonization, war, and forced migration. But through all of that, through the displacement, the assimilation efforts, and the erasure of their indigenous identity, their people persisted. By the late 1700s and early 1800s, many of the Supani families had settled into the area of what is Halifax and Warren counties, which is how the modern day Halawa name came to be. Halawa is a combination of Fairfax and Warren, and Supani, of course, is in honor of their original nationhood. They formed a close knit rural community. They built their own schools, they held on to their traditions, and they passed down their language, crafts, and spiritual beliefs across generations, often in secret, often without institutional support, and sometimes even in defiance of laws that sought to erase their native identity. One of the things that stand out most about their commitment is their commitment to education and self-governance. In the 1950s, the Halawi Supani opened their own tribal school, educating the children in a time when segregation and exclusion was the norm. That school became a hub for cultural preservation, a place where the community could learn about their history, their rights, and their future. Today, the Haliwa-Saponi are recognized by the state of North Carolina, but not by the federal government, meaning that everything they've done with limited resources, without the protection or benefits that come with full recognition. But despite that, the Haliwa-Saponi continue to thrive. Their tribal enrollment is over 4,000 members. Their powwow, which is held every April, is one of the longest traditions running in the Southeast. And their contributions to art, education, public service, and cultural heritage stretch beyond the borders of their counties. So this year's gathering came with something monumental because of that historic announcement. It's called HR 2929, and it's officially known as the Haliwa-Saponi Indian Tribe of North Carolina Act, which aims to seek full federal recognition to those people. Now, if you're wondering if this impact will have real terms, federal recognition is much more than just a legal label. It's the United States officially acknowledging an indigenous nation's sovereign status, historical and continuing and political relationship with the federal government. In practical terms, it means that the tribe is treated as a nation to nation partner with rights to self govern, access to federal funding, and eligibility for critical programs through agencies like the Indian Health Service, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and HUD, and so much more. It will allow them to apply for healthcare funding, educational grants in tribal colleges, housing and infrastructure report, as well as more support for their cultural preservation initiatives. And it gives them the ability to place ancestral lands into a federal trust, which will protect those lands from being sold or seized. For many tribes, especially those that have been state recognized or informally acknowledged for decades, the federal recognition is a path to justice, healing, and stability. It's about restoring the resources that were denied and the relationships that were broken by centuries of colonization and broken treaties. And so, with the Haliwa-Saponi people, this isn't the first time that they fought for recognition. Their struggle goes back to generations. They have been recognized by the state of North Carolina since 1965. After decades of advocacy, organization, and formal documentation of their lineages, their leadership structure, and their cultural practices. But state recognition only goes so far, and it doesn't guarantee access to federal funding or those sovereign land protections. Since then, the Haliwa-Saponi have made multiple attempts to gain full federal recognition, including through the federal acknowledgement process at the Bureau of Indian Affairs, a notoriously long, expensive, and complex process that often takes decades and thousands of pages of documentation, as well as legislative attempts in Congress like this new bill from Congressman Davis. But their recognition has never come easy. The process is slow, political, and heavily scrutinized. Many other tribes, including the Wacomico people in Virginia, as well as their neighbors, the Lumbees of North Carolina, have faced similar roadblocks. Yet through it all, the Haliwa-Saponi have continued to preserve their heritage and strengthen their community. And so when we talk about this federal um, recognition, it was more than performative. This is the latest chapter in a decades long journey. And for this moment, it is a moment of hope. Now, like with anything, the legislation still has to pass through committee and through the House and potentially through the Senate. But the message is clear that these are not invisible people. This is not people who are cosplaying as indigenous people. They are here, they've always been here, and their fight is not done. And this is just the next chapter in their recognition. Thank you for watching The Jenny Show. If you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you are listening on Apple, Spotify, Deezer, or Amazon Music, we love for a rating and review. It really helps more people find the show. Follow U.S. Daily Examiner on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads at U.S. Daily Examiner, and on Blue Sky at usdailyexaminer.com. And follow Jenny at Jenny Examines on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok.